guys, it's Mishel, Deception Bytes, and it is October 11th, and it's 7:43 p.m. Eastern Time. I hope everyone is doing well. I do apologize because I've been missing in action for the last couple days. I've had a lot of medical appointments, and I am a little worse for the wear, but I'm back. My goal going forward is to do 2 videos every day. I'm not sure if I can keep that up, but I'm going to sure try my best. I want to cover the Q posts, and I do want to cover Q related news every day because things are happening at an alarming pace. I do mean alarming. Now, I don't know, I wanted to just mention this before I dive in here. On the 9th, I happened to be looking and I found an article, and I actually went to YouTube as well and found some interesting stuff there as well on the whole stock market thing. As you know, on the 10th, the stock market took a massive dive and it continued downward today. Now, it's interesting because on the 9th, I was reading that 33 years ago, The Economist magazine predicted that on this date, on that date, October 10th of 2018, that the stock market would have a massive correction. Now, that's interesting, and it's all leading up to a global currency. Now, to me, it's interesting because on the 9th, after reading this and after looking at this, I thought, gosh, I've got a few dollars in the stock market, nothing major, but whenever I do have a few extra dollars, I try to put it into something that is working for me and not just put it in the bank where it does nothing. So I had invested in stocks after very carefully researching them. And so I considered pulling my money out on the 9th. And now I wonder if I would have been wise to do so because it has really taken a dive and it continued downward today. And I think, it's obvious this was planned because how could they predict that date if this was not planned? So this is all planned. And that to me is alarming because they can crash our economy. They can do whatever they want. They are... this is all planned. It's all been planned. And, as much as we want to think that everything is fine, it isn't fine. And if there's any of you guys out there that are into stocks and are experts, semi-experts, let me know in the comments below what you think about this because I'm a bit concerned about it. Not so much because of my money, but because of what it could portend, if you know what I mean. Now, I know you're not here to talk about the stock market, so we're going to get into Q. And again, I offer an apology because we are behind. We're going to pick up from where I left off in the last Q video, which was October 8th is the last that I posted. And there is one that Q posted after I uploaded my video from October 8th, and then we're going to dive into October 9th. Now, Q has not posted. He did not post on the 10th, and he has not posted today as of yet. There's, the night is young, but we're going to go back. Now, again, it may look a little different because I usually take these posts right from the Q, board, and I go to this is qanon.pub, and all the posts are pulled out and put onto this board by someone who is very kind, and so I'm gonna have to take it. Usually I copy this onto a Word spreadsheet and do my own notes underneath, but interestingly enough, last night as I was sleeping, the Word document just disappeared from my computer. Yes, it did. And oddly enough, I got up today and I pulled it up because I wanted to see if there were any new Q posts and add them to my Word document. And to my absolute surprise and horror, it's gone. So instead of taking the time to recopy it all out, I'm just going to read from the board. I may miss out and forget some of the notes that I had written underneath, but hey, you do what you got to do. So let's get caught up. I know that's why you're here, so let's dive in. Now, this is the post that I missed from October 8th. We're going to look at that first, and it is, we've got Sally Yates in the kill box, and it is bolded, and underneath it's Q. So let's look for Sally Yates to be in the news, and indeed she is. Indeed, she has been recently in the news. So now I had some links underneath on my Word document, which is out there somewhere, floating around in cyberspace. So let me just see here. And I just want to show you. Okay, and of course, Sally Yates served as United States Attorney and later United States Deputy Attorney General, and she was appointed by Barack Obama. Now, I did watch, because she is in the news lately, here she is 2 days ago, Sally Yates on protecting Robert Mueller's investigation, and so she's been talking about that on the news lately. And she also has a new job, apparently, and she's working for an Atlanta-based law firm, but that was back in May. But she has been in the news lately, and, you know, talking about standing up to Trump and so forth. Now, it's interesting. Anyway, we'll look for more about her, because generally when Q does that, and mentions someone like that, immediately they start showing up in the news. So that's what I expect. She's already been fired, so she can't be more fired than she is. It's like being pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. You're not a little bit pregnant. And she is fired, so she can't be more fired than she already is. So we'll look to see what Q exactly is alluding to there, because it's something. All right, now let's go up to the next post, and this is on October 9th. So let's take a look at what it is that Q is wanting us to know here. And beneath these links, he says boom, 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 boom. Of course, it is staggered here, which I believe means something. Coincidence, the news today is focused on a resignation, Q. And it was on October 9th, that's when Nikki Haley, resigned. And it's odd because she's leaving, but I also saw a video where Trump was praising the job that she had done and everything. So it's odd. I don't understand really what the whole thing is there. But I think we can look for something coming up, because there's something about that resignation that Q is wanting to draw our attention to. Now, let's just... Okay, and this is Nikki Haley. She is an American politician who currently serves as the 29th United States Ambassador to the United Nations. She's a Republican. She served as the 116th Governor of South Carolina and is a former member of the South Carolina House of Representatives. Now, according to everyone that I've read or everything that I've seen, she did a wonderful job. So I don't know what is happening here. It's odd. I don't think she is fired, as far as I know, because she's staying until the end of the year. If she was fired, I think she would be out the door. Not sure what's going on there. And there is something about this that Q is drawing our attention to, just not exactly sure what it is yet. And I think as time goes by, we'll know what it is about this resignation. But let's look at the links that Q has provided for us and see what else we can discern. Former FBI lawyer plot to record, remove Trump, not a joke. Now, of course, you realize that Rosenstein had talked about wearing a wire and recording Trump and then trying to get him removed under Amendment 25, which says that Amendment 25 is that if a president is incapable, either through health reasons, mental health, whatever, of continuing as president, he can be removed under Amendment 25, because it is possible that you could have a president that, has mental health issues and is just, not in any shape to lead the country. And, as with a lot of mental health issues, a lot of times someone can have mental health issues and not realize that they do. So I guess, this has been put into the amendment, the Constitution, so that if that ever happens, a president can be removed if he is, incapacitated in any way. And so I guess Rosenstein was trying to prove that President Trump is, a few slices short of a loaf, So anyway, don't tell former FBI General Counsel James Baker that those now infamous discussions about secretly recording President Trump and using the tapes to remove him from office were a joke. He apparently doesn't believe it, and he held quite the vantage point. He was on the inside of the Bureau's leadership in May 2017 when the discussions occurred. Baker told Congress last week that his boss, then acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe, was dead serious about the idea of surreptitiously recording the 45th president and using the evidence to make the case that Trump should be removed from office, according to my sources. Now, Baker told lawmakers he wasn't in the meeting McCabe had with Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, in which the subject came up, but he did have first-hand conversations with McCabe and the FBI lawyer assigned to McCabe, Lisa Page, about the issue. As far as Baker was concerned, this was a real plan being discussed, said a source directly familiar with the congressional investigation. It was no laughing matter for the FBI. Word of Baker's testimony surfaced just days before Rosenstein was set to be interviewed in private on Thursday by House Judiciary Committee lawmakers. Since the New York Times first reported the allegations, Rosenstein, the number 2 Department of Justice official, has tried to downplay his role in them. His office has suggested he thought the discussions were a joke, that Rosenstein never gave an order to carry out such a plot, and that he does not believe Trump should be removed from office. But making those statements through a spokesperson is a bit different than having Rosenstein himself face Congress and answer the questions under penalty of felony if lawmakers think he is lying. Baker's account to lawmakers this month clearly complicates an already complicated picture for Rosenstein before Congress, assuming he shows up for Thursday's interview. But even more so, Baker's story lays bare an extraordinary conversation in which at least some senior FBI officials thought it within their purview to try to capture the president on tape and then go to the president's own cabinet secretaries, hoping to persuade the senior leaders of the administration to remove the president from power. Even more extraordinary is the timing of such discussions. They occurred, according to Baker's account, in the window around the firing of FBI Director James Comey. Could it be that the leaders of a wounded, stunned FBI were seeking retribution for their boss's firing with a secret recording operation? I doubt this is the power that Congress intended to be exercised when it created the FBI a century ago, or the circumstances in which the authors of the 25th Amendment imagined a president's removal could be engineered. This wasn't a president who was incapacitated at the time. He was fully exercising his powers, but in a way the FBI leadership did not like. And that makes the FBI's involvement in the tape record then dump Trump conversations overtly political, even if Rosenstein believes the whole idea was farcical. Keep in mind, this is the same FBI that, a few months earlier during the 2016 election, had its top counterintelligence agent, Peter Strzok, talking to Page, his lover, and the top lawyer to McCabe about using their official powers to, quote, stop Trump in the election and having an, quote, insurance policy against the GOP nominee. That insurance policy increasingly looks like an unverified dossier created by British intelligence operative Christopher Steele, a Trump hater himself, that was bought and paid for by the Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign through their mutual law firm. You walk away from the Baker interview with little doubt that the FBI leadership in the 2016-17 timeframe saw itself as far more than a neutral investigative agency, but actually as a force to stop Trump's election before it happened, and then maybe reversing it after the election was over, said a source directly familiar with the congressional investigation. Baker provided some other valuable insights in his congressional interview. As I reported last week, he revealed that he accepted information in the Russia investigation from a lawyer for the Democratic National Committee. And my sources also confirmed that Baker admitted he received a version of the Steele dossier from left-leaning reporter David Korn of Mother Jones magazine and then forwarded it to Strzok's team. Korn says that occurred in November 2016, right after the election. That transaction is significant for two reasons. First, at the time, Steele had been fired from the FBI probe for leaking to the media, and he wasn't supposed to be further assisting the probe, so Korn essentially acted as a backdoor to allow information to continue to flow. Secondly, the FBI was using the news media as an investigative source outside the normal chain of evidence. Whatever you think of Rosenstein or the Russia probe, the statements Baker made to Congress have implications for all Americans. The FBI was created to investigate crimes and stop foreign intelligence and terrorism threats. It was never designed to be a broker in the political process of elections or the execution of the 25th Amendment. And that is the Hill and the former FBI lawyer plot to record, remove Trump, not a joke. And I think that probably anyone with more than two neurons to rub together already realized that it was not a joke. People don't generally joke about such things. Now let's go back and let's look at the next link provided by Q. And this is by Sarah Carter, and it says former top FBI lawyer testified that Rosenstein seriously considered secretly recording Trump. So this again is much the same. I'm not going to read all of this, but I will read a little bit of it. Former FBI General Counsel James Baker told lawmakers last week that based on conversations with senior FBI officials, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein was seriously considering secretly recording President Trump's conversations. Rosenstein also discussed the possibility of invoking the 25th Amendment on the president in an effort to remove him from office for being unfit. This, according to sources with direct knowledge, of Baker's deposition. So, yeah, this is, I'm not going to go through all this because it's much the same information. There's actually nothing new here. It's just that Q is giving us a couple links to look up to verify what he has said all along. It's not a joke. So I'm wondering why the news that day, perhaps Q is trying to tell us that this came out about Nikki Haley to deflect from this news about Rosenstein plotting to remove Trump through secretly recording him. I'm not sure. But there's a lot more to this than meets the eye, I can assure you. Now, let's go to the next post. Now, remember, we can recall this picture, and this was posted September 27th by Q. And it's a picture of a vehicle. I'm just going to make it bigger here for us so we can take a boo at it. And it's a vehicle. It's a very nice black Mercedes with darkened windows. And we have the Chinese flags here. And it's in reference to Feinstein. That's all we know. Now, let's go back here. Get rid of this. And this was posted September 27th, as I said, and underneath it just says Feinstein. Q. Now, Q is referencing that on October 9th. He placed that in there and referenced it, and then he said, where was this picture taken? Hanging of flags, traditional, occurs in this part of the country for what holiday? Now, I've looked into this, and there's a couple things, because I know that in San Francisco, they do hang the Chinese flag in Chinatown, and they actually had a big furor over the hanging of the Chinese flag at the town hall I think it was in 2014 and 2016 that they did it. So I wondered, could this be in the States? And, I don't know. But we're going to come back to this later because Q adds a little bit more information. Now, let's take a look at this link that Q has provided us here. Okay, now, this is interesting. It's from Bloomberg. New evidence of hacked supermicro hardware found in U.S. telecom. The discovery shows that China continues to sabotage critical technology components bound for America. Now, isn't it interesting that this is coming out now? This came out on October 9th, and yet we knew about it quite a while ago because of Q. Now, you tell me if that is just a LARP. How is it that this Q person knows all this stuff in advance? Please tell me that. Please explain it to me. Because people continue to insist that this is a LARP, a live action role playing, and somebody is just, playing a game, basically. Well, whoever they are, if they're playing a game, it's a very good one because they have lots and lots of inside information that they would not have normally. And with all the coordinated stuff between Trump and Q, with Q posting and then Trump posting, etc., I don't know how anybody can deny this. I just don't. And the fact that Q, at his rally, Trump at his rallies points out people with Q t-shirts and gives them thumbs up. That should tell you something, right? Anyway, let's continue here. Now, a major U.S. telecommunications company discovered manipulated hardware from Supermicro Computer Inc. in its network and removed it in August. Fresh evidence of tampering in China of critical technology components bound for the U.S., according to a security expert working for the telecom company. The security expert, Yossi Applebaum, provided documents, analysis, other evidence of the discovery following the publication of an investigative report in Bloomberg Businessweek that detailed how China's intelligence services had ordered subcontractors to plant malicious chips in Supermicro server motherboards over a 2-year period ending in 2015. Applebaum previously worked in the technology unit of the Israeli Army Intelligence Corps and is now co-chief executive officer of Sepio Systems in Gaithersburg, Maryland. His firm specializes in hardware security and was hired to scan several large data centers belonging to the telecommunications company. Bloomberg is not identifying the company due to Applebaum's non-disclosure agreement with the client. Unusual communications from a Supermicro server and a subsequent physical inspection revealed an implant built into the server's Ethernet connector, a component that used to attach network cables to the computer, Applebaum said. The executive said he's seen similar manipulations.
Among the top 10 most valuable tech companies globally.
The executive said that he had seen similar manipulations of different vendors' computer hardware made by contractors in China, not just products from Supermicro. Supermicro is a victim, so is everyone else, he said. Applebaum said his concern is that there are countless points in the supply chain in China where manipulations can be introduced, and deducing them can, in many cases, be impossible. That's the problem with the Chinese supply chain, he said. Supermicro said after the earlier story that it strongly refutes reports. I missed a part here. Bloomberg News first contacted Supermicro for comment on this story on Monday at 9:23 a.m. Eastern Time and gave the company 24 hours to respond. Supermicro said after the earlier story that it strongly refutes reports that reports that servers it sold to customers contained malicious microchips. China Embassy in Washington did not return a request for comment Monday in response to the earlier Bloomberg Businessweek investigation. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs didn't directly address questions about the manipulation of Supermicro servers, but said that supply chain security is an issue of common concern and China is also a victim. I don't believe that for a minute. Supermicro shares plunged 41% last Thursday, the most since it became a public company in 2007 following the Bloomberg Businessweek revelations about the hacked servers. They fell as much as 27% on Tuesday after the latest story. The more recent manipulation is different from the one described in the Bloomberg Businessweek report last week, but it shares key characteristics. They're both designed to give attackers invisible access to data on a computer network in which the server is installed, and the alterations were found to have been made at the factory as the motherboard was being produced by a Supermicro subcontractor in China. Based on his inspection of the device, Applebaum determined that the telecom community server was modified at the factory where it was manufactured. He said that he was told by Western intelligence contacts that the device was made at a Supermicro subcontractor factory in Guangzhou, a port city in southeastern China. Guangzhou, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is 90 miles upstream from Shenzhen, dubbed the Silicon Valley of hardware and home to giants such as Tencent Holding Limited and Huawei Technologies Company. The tampered hardware was found in a facility that had large numbers of Supermicro servers, and the telecommunication company technicians couldn't answer what kind of data was pulsing through the infected one, said Applebaum, who accompanied them for a visual inspection of the machine. It's not clear if the telecommunications company contacted the FBI about the discovery. An FBI spokeswoman declined to comment on whether it was aware of the finding. AT&T Inc. spokesman Fletcher Cook said these devices are not part of our network and we are not affected. A Verizon Communications Inc. spokesman said we're not affected. Sprint does not have Supermicro equipment deployed in our network, said Lisa Below, a Sprint spokeswoman. T-Mobile US Inc. didn't respond to requests to comment. CPO Systems Board includes Chairman Tamir Pardo, former director of the Israeli Mossad, the National Defense Agency of Israel, and its advisory board includes Robert Bigman, former chief information security officer of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency. U.S. communications networks are an important target of Foreign Intelligence Agency because data from millions of mobile phones, computers, and other devices pass through their systems. Hardware implants are key tools used to create covert openings into those networks, perform reconnaissance, and hunt for corporate intellectual property or government secrets. All right, now I'm not going to go through all of this. I think that is the interesting part, and I know that it is not very interesting to listen to someone read. So let's go on. Now, Q has pulled out this part. Western intelligence contacts that the device was made at. That's not very good English. Western intelligence contacts that the device was made at a Supermicro subcontractor facility in Guangzhou, a port city in southeastern China. Guangzhou is 90 miles upstream from Shenzhen, dubbed the Silicon Valley of hardware. What state does Feinstein represent? Well, she represents California, interestingly enough, where our Silicon Valley is. Now, here is another link that Q has provided us, and we are going to go out to that now. Explain the Chinese spy, Senator Feinstein, and of course, it is the Washington Post, and it will not let me read it, which I really dislike. But I understand they have to make a living. So let's go back here and explain the Chinese spy, Senator Feinstein. And of course, we know that she had a Chinese spy in her employ as a driver for many, many years. And absolutely nothing surprises me about Senator Feinstein. So, now next, Q says Google and China. Well, we already know that they have a nice, cozy little relationship. So let's go look at this. Okay. Leaked transcript of private meeting contradicts Google's official story on China. Well, well. We have to be focused on what we want to enable, said Ben Gomes, Google's search engine chief, and then when the opening happens, we are ready for it. It was Wednesday, July 18th, and Gomes was addressing a team of Google employees who were working on a secretive project to develop a censored search engine for China, which would blacklist phrases like human rights, student protest, and Nobel Prize. You have taken on something extremely important to the company, Gomes declared, according to a transcript of his comments obtained by The Intercept. I have to admit, it's been a difficult journey, but I do think a very important and worthwhile one, and I wish ourselves the best of luck in actually reaching our destination as soon as possible. Gomes joked about the unpredictability of President Donald Trump and groaned about the ongoing trade war between the U.S. and China, which has slowed down Google's negotiation with Communist Party officials in Beijing, whose approval Google requires to launch the censored search engine. Gomes, who joined Google in 1999 as one of the key engineers behind the company's search engine, said he hoped the censored Chinese version of the platform could be launched within 6 and 9 months, but it could be sooner. This is the world none of us have ever lived in before, he said, so I feel that we shouldn't put too much definite into the timeline. It has been 2 months since the Intercept first revealed details about the censored search engine codenamed Dragonfly. Since then, the project has faced a wave of criticism from human rights groups, Google employees, U.S. senators, and even Vice President Mike Pence, who on Thursday last week called on Google to immediately end development of the Dragonfly app that will strengthen the Communist Party censorship and compromise the privacy of Chinese customers. Google has refused to answer questions or concerns about Dragonfly. On September 26, a Google executive faced public questions on the censorship plan for the first time. Keith Enright told the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee that there is a Project Dragonfly, but said we are not close to launching a product in China. When pressed to give specific details, Enright refused, saying he was not clear on the contours of what is in scope or out of scope for that project. Senior executives at Google directly involved in building the censorship system have largely avoided any public scrutiny. But on September 23rd, Gomes briefly addressed Dragonfly when confronted by a BBC reporter at an event celebrating Google's 20th anniversary. Right now, all we've done is some exploration, Gomes told the reporter. But since we don't have any plans to launch something, there's nothing much I can say about it. I don't believe that for a minute. Gomes' statement kept with the company official line, but it flatly contradicted what he had privately told Google employees who were working on Dragonfly, which distributed some of them. One Google source told The Intercept Gomes' comments to the BBC were, quote, bullshit. In July, Gomes had informed employees that the plan to launch the search engine as soon as possible and to get it ready to be brought off the shelf and quickly deployed once approval from Beijing was received. Gomes' remarks to staff, which can be read in full below, highlight the stark contrast between Google's public and private statements about Dragonfly. The secretive project has been underway since spring 2017 and has involved about 300 employees, the majority of whom have worked full-time on the plan. It was far beyond an exploration, and the plan to launch it was well developed, as some of Google's own employees have themselves highlighted in recent weeks, despite the company's efforts to suppress such information. Gomes' remarks also shed light on why Google is interested in returning its search engine to China after a noisy departure in 2010 when the company announced that it could no longer continue censoring our results there due to concerns over free speech and security. In explaining to staff why the work on Dragonfly was extremely important, Gomes referenced the sheer size of the Chinese market, saying, "We are talking about the next billion users for Google." He also called China the most interesting market in the world today. By virtue of working on this, Gomes added, "You will act as a window onto this world of innovation that we are otherwise blind to." Since Gomes offered the optimistic take, the public exposure of Dragonfly and the backlash that has ensued both internally and externally appears to have unsettled Google's leadership. And it has created a degree of uncertainty around the direction of the plan. However, according to sources, with knowledge of Dragonfly, engineers working on the censored search engine, acting on instructions from management, are continuing to actively develop it. The Intercept contacted Gomes for comment, but he did not answer requests sent by email and text message. Reached twice on his cell phone on Saturday, Gomes claimed when asked about Dragonfly that he had a bad line. "I can't hear anything that you're saying. I just can't hear that you are talking," he said, and swiftly hung up the phone. Now, this is him addressing the staff. So, yeah, big contrast between what he is saying publicly and what he is saying internally to his employees. And I am reading this because it's very, very important for us to understand this. And personally, and again, I want to reiterate that this is a personal opinion, I believe ultimately this is being developed. They may say that it's for China and they're testing it in China, but believe me, it will come here. It will. And we are already seeing censorship on an unprecedented level. I've never seen censorship like this before in my life, anyway. I think that this has been a long haul for many of you. I just want to acknowledge that, first of all, many of you have started working on this a while back. It's not easy working on a project with no obvious outcome. Thank you for that. In doing so, you have taken on something extremely important to the company, our basic mission of serving all the world's users. Along the way, I think there are many benefits that come to us that are auxiliary, and not just from the direct work, but from all of the auxiliary things of working in China. There are two ways in which I think about Google. One of them is technology, the other is product and serving users. So from the point of view of serving users, there is no question. We are talking about the next billion users. But actually, I was looking at it, there's like 5 billion adults in the world, so why are we thinking about the next billion users? Well, some of them are not enabled, internet enabled, and so on. Excuse me. And of the people who are internet enabled, a huge fraction of the ones we are missing out are in China. Excuse me, just one moment. And so the opportunity, hang on, I had a little fly on my computer screen. And so the opportunity there is, all of you will know this, but it's clearly the biggest opportunity to serve more people that we have. And if you take our mission seriously, that's where our key focus should be. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Many of these things are not easy, and you know this now from personal experience. Also, given the political climate, the future is very unpredictable. 6 to 9 months to launch. So in publicly, he's saying that they've only been exploring it. But here, to his employees, he's saying that they are only 6 to 9 months away from launch. Those are two completely different things. But we couldn't have predicted the last 3 days of politics, let alone the last year of politics, or the last 2 or 3 years of politics. So we just don't know what the future holds in some ways. We have to be focused on what we want to enable, and when the opening happens, we are ready for it. Now, I'm not going to continue on reading all of this. It's a lot, and but just know that this is very close to being launched, and it's very interesting because Google and China, I don't know, they are in bed together like I've never seen. And honestly, my personal opinion is that this is being developed not so much for China, although it will be used in China, but it's being rolled out there because it couldn't be rolled out here at this time, but it will be. And you may disagree with me, and that is absolutely fine. We do not have to think alike about everything, because as I'm sure you've heard many times, if we both think exactly alike, then one of us isn't necessary. So let's go back to see what Q has to say here. I keep wanting to go to my Word document because that's what I'm used to doing, but let's go back here. Now, so underneath, Q says dragonfly. And of course, that is the code name for what they're developing. And Q says, look here, Russia. Do not look here, China. And what he means by that is they're telling, the deep state is all wanting us to look towards Russia. Russia's the boogeyman. Russia, they're the big enemy. When really, in fact, it's all to keep us from looking at who the real enemy is, and that's China. So I think that that's important to know, and so that we don't fall for it. And also this, I'm not going to go out to this, but this is the video. Well, I will show it to you, but I'm not going to play it. It's 45 minutes long, and it is worth listening to. Now, I will say that
and 2020.
What he has to say, Vice President Mike Pence's remarks on the administration's policy towards China, and it is very interesting. Now, I will say, Mike Pence is not the dynamic speaker that Trump is, but it's definitely worth listening to because there's a lot of information there. So I would recommend this. It is called Vice President Mike Pence's remarks on the administration's policy towards China. Now, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever for me to play 45 minutes for you of 43 minutes and 9 seconds. That makes no sense at all. So I would, if you have the time, I would recommend listening to this, but at a time when you can concentrate on it, because I find he's not quite as easy listening as some others, but what he has to say is very, very interesting. All right, let's go back. Oh, I keep wanting to go to my Word document. Force of habit. All right, so now underneath, Q is telling us that it's worth 43 minutes of your time, and I would agree. Now, he is saying all inside roads to China are being closed. America is no longer for sale. Q. So it is very comforting to know that Q is aware, Trump is aware, the administration is aware of all this, and they're shutting off the access. So the inside roads to China are being closed. Now, that is good news. And it's also good news that America is no longer for sale, because America has been subsidizing the world for as long as it has existed, pretty much. And I think that's time to stop. I think it's time to put America first. America needs to take care of its own first. I am all for charity. I'm all for giving to other countries and helping other countries, but America is in need itself. I mean, the education is deplorable in America, especially in the South. I mean, and the infrastructure is deteriorating rapidly. The vets, we need to take care of our vets. We need to take care of the elderly. There's just a lot that America needs to look at, internally. So I think it's all good, all good. Now, let's go on to the next post here. And it is this. And this is very interesting, if you ask me. Let's go look at the link that Q provides us. Now, here's what Trump's ethanol plan means for farmers, refiners, and motorists. Corn farmers benefit, but some refiners and car engines won't. President Donald Trump plans to allow the sale of a higher concentration of ethanol in gasoline throughout the year would appease U.S. corn farmers who have been stung by low corn prices as a result of the U.S.-China trade dispute and likely even lead to lower prices at the pump. So some refiners and older car engines, however, may pay the price. Trump is expected to announce a directive later Tuesday that would allow the year-round sale of gasoline with up to 15% ethanol, also known as E15. That would include the use of the blend even during the summer driving season. Its use in the summer months is currently banned as it can produce more smog. You can approve this all day long, but Americans don't necessarily want it, said Patrick DeHaan, head of the petroleum analysis at fuel price tracker GasBuddy. It would help to push corn prices higher and benefit farmers, and it may even help to lower prices for gasoline, but it would hurt refiners who don't have the ability to blend ethanol. And there are also concerns about the impact of E15 in car engines, especially those made before 2001. Well, I don't think there are many cars around before 2001. I mean, that's a really old car, seriously. So yeah, how many people are really driving around in 17-year-old cars? Like, seriously. Maybe some of the people that have restored older vehicles, but that's a very low percentage. So I think that is a red herring there. Engine risks. On the negative side, selling a 15% ethanol blend means that retailers have a fuel that is not backdated, in that it is inappropriate for older cars, said Tom Kloza, global head of energy analysis at the Oil Price Information Service, or OPIS. Now, really, again, this is ridiculous because, okay, if you've got a car that's before 2001, your car is 18, 19 years old. I don't know very many people that have a car that old. I mean, cars just aren't meant to last that long. So I think we're talking about a very, 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 very tiny percentage of people. That leads to problems with labeling equipment and could, under some circumstances, create performance issues for, say, 1990s cars, he said. 1990? Like, seriously, who has a car that old? I mean, really, if you have a car that old, let me know in the comments below, because I've never seen somebody driving around in a car that old. But maybe that's just me. DeHaan, meanwhile, pointed out that the Environmental Protection Agency has an interesting warning label on E15, which basically warns motorists not to fill up with that type of gasoline blend if their car was made before 2001. Well, they probably had to push it to the pump if it was made before 2001. But I'm just saying. The EPA regulates the read vapor pressure, or RVP, of gasoline during the summer from June 1st to September 15. That's a generic term for gasoline volatility, and it's monitored to reduce evaporative emissions from gasoline that contribute to ground level ozone. The EPA grants a 1 pound per square inch RVP waiver for E10, but has so far declined to expand the waiver for summer E15, said Brian Milne, Energy Director and Product Manager with DTN. Increase the concentration of ethanol in gasoline to 15% from 10% leads to a higher RVP number than allowed during the summer, said Dahan. The change also has implications for renewable fuel credits. Renewable identification numbers, or RINs, are used to track batches of biofuels, such as ethanol. They serve as credits and act basically like a currency in the renewable fuel standard program aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Renewable fuel producers generate RINs, and obligated parties obtain and ultimately retire RINs for compliance according to the EPA. But market participants can also trade them. Okay, I'm not going to go into all this because we know certainly for farmers, for corn farmers, analysts said the move could certainly benefit prices. And raising ethanol blend rate would be a win-win for the pocketbook of every corn farmer. So I guess there is always trade-offs, but let's go back and see what Q has to say. Now, Q says, increase ethanol, corn, well, of course, ethanol comes from corn, concentration in gasoline leads to effort to combat China's attempt to harm our farmers. Announcement tonight, Q. So this is directly related to China and the trade war, so to speak, and wanting to benefit the corn farmers. But, of course, there are trade-offs, and I don't know. I don't know how big a risk it poses. I'm no expert there, but certainly I think that probably Trump and his economists have weighed this and probably found that it's best to supplement or combat the effects of China's attempt to harm them, and lower the corn prices. So I think that probably this has all been considered beforehand, I would assume. Anyway, now let's go to the next post. And it's a doozy. And it is this one, and it's in reference to the picture that we looked at earlier with the Rolls-Royce, the black Rolls-Royce, underneath the Chinese flags. And this is showing, now this Anon posted this, and Q referred to it, meaning that, obviously, he agrees, these are license plates from China, and it says that the license plate on that car, license plate matches the Chinese plate for Guangdong province, top right. Check the symbol. So Q responds and says, Guangdong equals Guangzhou equals Shenzhen. Do you believe in coincidence? And he says Q. Now, not exactly what he means here. And if you have some insight on this, please let me know. I'm not sure if he's saying that the plates for all of these three are similar, or they're all involved in the same thing. I don't know. I wish I did, and I wish I had more insight into this for you, but I don't. And unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to do a deep dig on it. So if you know, please put it in the comments below, and it will help everyone involved, including me. So there you are, and we're on to the last post from October 9th here. Now, it says statement release 10/9/18. Now, meaning that what follows is going to be a statement relief, and it says P_authority 1. Now, I'm thinking this means presidential authority, that the president is giving the authority, but perhaps that's just me, and there may be other meanings for that. General statement. We understand that there is extreme fatigue and frustration regarding the wheels of justice. Slow. So he's saying, look, we understand that there's extreme fatigue. This has been going on, and people are frustrated because we're having this information come out, but we're not seeing arrests. So we know what they're doing. We know the criminal activities that they're involved in, but we're not seeing justice. And that has led to both fatigue and frustration. And yeah, the wheels of justice have been very slow. Now, exclude emotion and personal desire. Instead, use logic and critical thinking based on situational awareness. Undo a lifetime of evil and corruption. Infestation in the span of less than 2 years with a corrupt DOJ and FBI in place. So he's saying, look, you got to think about this logically and use critical thinking, because what they're trying to do is undo a lifetime of evil and corruption and infestation in the span of less than 2 years. Trump hasn't been in office. He's been in office less than 2 years. And he's had a corrupt DOJ and FBI in place. So really, how do you undo a lifetime of evil and corruption, which is a literal infestation, in the span of less than 2 years with a corrupt DOJ and FBI in place? How do you do that? No, you have to clean out the DOJ and FBI first. And we should see with all the firings and resignations and so forth that is being done. That is the first step. You can't do anything when you have a corrupt DOJ and FBI. So he said process and planning, law and order, military operation. This is going to be a military operation. It has to be. And it's a process, process and planning, and that's what they've been doing. It's a process, and it takes a lot of planning to restore law and order. How can you make arrests non-military prior to first fully cleaning out corrupt elements at the top of those departments? FBI, DOJ, that oversee investigation and prosecution in the United States. I almost said prostitution. Oh my gosh, I hope they're not overseeing prostitution. How can you make arrests non-military prior to first fully cleaning out corrupt elements at the top of those departments, FBI, DOJ, that oversee investigation and prosecution in the United States? They themselves are the very ones engaged in the illegal treasonous acts. You can't. It has to be cleaned out first. And I think we all realize that. And I think, certainly we let our emotions get the better of us because we want justice, and, rightfully so. But we've got to realize what he's working with. He's been in office less than 2 years, and he's trying to undo a lifetime of corruption with a corrupt DOJ and FBI. What do you do? Because you can't, really, if they were to arrest Hillary, would anything ever be done? Because the people at the very top are protecting her. It's corrupt all the way to the very, very top. It needs to be cleaned out first. And that is what he's telling us. He's explaining, look, it's been less than 2 years. It's like people that, okay, say you're 300 pounds. You can't go on a diet for a week and expect to undo a lifetime of bad eating. You can't. It would take you years. You have to first change your eating habits. You have to first, detox and all that. And, it's like, here he is trying to undo a lifetime of corruption in 2 years. Can't do it. It's like someone that's 300 pounds thinking that they can go on a diet for a week and undo all that damage. It's not possible. So, and I'm not, I'm not putting down anyone that's overweight. I have had my own weight issues and, have struggled to keep my weight at where it should be. So I understand. But anyway, let's go back. Now, underneath that, once he explains, then he lets us know. James Comey, director, fired. Andrew McCabe, deputy director, fired. Jim Rybicki, chief of staff and senior counselor, fired. James Baker, general counsel, fired. Bill Presap, director of counterintelligence, Strzok's boss, cooperating witness, his powers been removed. Peter Strzok, deputy assistant director of counterintelligence, fired. Lisa Page, office of general counsel, fired, forced. Mike Cortan, assistant director for public affairs, fired. David Loffman, chief of the Justice Department's counterintelligence and export control section, national security. This is how he's connected. National security, Hillary Rodham Clinton email investigation, fired. Force. He was forced to be fired. He didn't go gently into that good night. John Carlin, Assistant Attorney General, head of DOJ's National Security Division, fired. Forced. Sally Yates, Deputy Attorney General and Acting Attorney General, fired. Mary McCord, Acting Assistant Attorney General, Acting Head of DOJ's National Security Division, fired. Forced. Where was I? Bruce Orr, Associate Deputy Attorney General, demoted 2 times, cooperating witness, power removed, termination imminent. Rachel Brand, Associate Attorney General, number 3 official behind Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein, fired, forced. Batter's box. Now, what he means by batter's box is these are the next ones to go. These are up at, they're in the batter's box. Michael Steinbeck, John Glasalone, Randy Coleman, Trisha Anderson. Now, for some reason, Trisha Anderson's wedding announcement is here. Now, I do not understand why Q put this in here, maybe just to let us know who she is. I don't know. Trisha Beth Anderson and Charles Lawrence Newman were married Saturday at the Clifton Inn in Charlottesville, Virginia. The Reverend Scott E. Davis, a United Methodist minister, officiated. The bride, 35, who will keep her name, is a senior counsel to James M. Cole, the Deputy Attorney General in Washington. Until July, she was clerk for the Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan. She graduated from Yale and received a law degree from Harvard. She is the daughter of Betty Anderson and Howard B. Anderson of Cranberry Township, Pennsylvania. The bride's father is the commodity and energy risk manager in Pittsburgh at Del Monte Foods, the San Francisco food production and distribution company. The bridegroom, 33, is deputy legal advisor to the National Security Council at the White House. He graduated from Duke and received a law degree from University of Virginia. He is son of Mary Elizabeth Newman and George W. Newman III of Cincinnati. The bridegroom's mother works from home directing projects involving leadership training and development at the Cygnus Corporation, a management consultancy in Rockville, Maryland. His father retired as the owner of the Lobus Leather Corporation, a manufacturer that was in Cincinnati. So, not sure what the deal is there, why these people are important, but apparently they are, and Q let us know that Trisha Anderson has recently married Charles Newman. So there you go. Hang on here. There we go. And continuing on, Kevin Kleinsmith, Tashina Gar, I guess that's how you, Sally Moyer. How do you ensure those prosecuted non-military would receive an impartial judgment based on the rule of law? Think federal judge rulings, obstruction, POTUS granted constitutional authority. How do you ensure appeals to the U.S. Supreme Court are evaluated impartially based on the rule of law? Think Justice Kavanaugh, 5-4. Military law versus criminal law. Enemy combatant. And of course, an enemy combatant is, which many of these people are tried under military law, not criminal law. How do you navigate around installed blockade? For example, Mueller, designed to take in evidence needed to expose the deep state. Designed to take in evidence needed to expose the deep state. DOJ block, Mueller evidence, ongoing investigation. Mueller designed to limit POTUS ability to maneuver. Mueller designed to stall for time until midterm elections to terminate all House Senate ongoing investigations. So, yeah, I mean, they're trying to work around Mueller, who is essentially a blockade and has been installed for that purpose. Mueller designed to safeguard Democratic Party base, false narrative. He's meant to keep this false narrative about Russian collusion ongoing. And the narrative that POTUS cheated, evil, sky falling, in effort to divide and mobilize for future protests, riots, threats, violence, false flags, etc. Mueller designed to provide fake news with ammunition to sway public opinion, obstruct foreign and domestic agenda, fuel impeachment removal, fuel anti-POTUS division, and prevent unity, which is exactly what he's doing. Mueller designed to demonstrate to foreign players that the old guard still pulls strings. Mueller is designed to mobilize the Democratic Party for midterm vote win. Mueller is designed to push the Democratic backers to donate. GoFundMe, Democratic Party. So they must have a GoFundMe. And alarmingly enough, I just heard that Hillary Clinton is going to be running for the 2020 presidential election. She just does not get it. And I don't know how she's doing this because her assets have been frozen, but they are raising money for a, quote, exploratory committee. And she's already announced that she's going to be touring. So yeah, she doesn't get it. She does not get it. She really believes that she has a chance to be president. And if anyone, I mean, I would rather have Elmer Fudd as president. Seriously. Let's continue here. Mueller designed as public outcry excuse should criminal charges be brought against them. Because then they can claim, we are being politically attacked because Mueller, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, we know that. We can see this. It's transparent as glass, but they think they're so clever. How do you remove installed blockade? Well, Q is telling us, declass, declass, declass. Because the more people know, the more they're going to be outraged, and the more people are going to just walk away from the Democrat Party. How do you navigate around installed corrupt FBI DOJ? Use a stealth bomber. Now, he's not talking about a real bomber. He's talking about probably a person or persons who must authorize firing of FBI, DOJ officials. Why did McCabe try to take Sessions out? What was the Sessions Senate confirmation vote? 52-47. Now, what does this mean? Number 175. Logical thinking versus clickbait. Let's look at this first. All right. Now, fired FBI official authorized perjury investigation against Sessions. Sources tell NBC former FBI Director Andrew McCabe authorized perjury investigation of Attorney General Jeff Sessions nearly 1 year ago, looking at whether Sessions lied in his testimony about contact with Russian operatives. So let's listen to what this is saying here.
Breaking news on the Russia probe, and it's a weird one. Attorney General Jeff Sessions and the man he fired just 6 days ago, Friday night, former deputy to Jim Comey, Andrew McCabe, are now involved in something of a cat and mouse game, according to history. Here's the headline. This FBI official that Sessions fired apparently authorized a perjury investigation into Sessions a year ago, sources telling NBC News. McCabe, who, as I mentioned, was fired, was reportedly charged with looking at whether Sessions lied in a criminal manner when he testified before Congress about those infamous contacts with Russians.
Don't believe that surrogates from the Trump campaign had communications with the Russians. Is that what you're saying?
I did not, and I'm not aware of anyone else that did. And I don't believe it happened, but
it did happen. Sessions would go on to recuse himself from the Russia probe, as well as, he said publicly, the Clinton Foundation, a recusal he may have violated in that Friday firing of McCabe. And then there was the meeting, of course, with the now guilty Trump aide George Papadopoulos, who claimed he told Sessions that he could coordinate some kind of meeting between Trump and Putin. Then you had that recusal of Sessions overall, which, of course, ultimately led to Rod Rosenstein appointing Bob Mueller as special counsel, Trump unleashing his anger at Sessions after Mueller was appointed, calling him even an idiot and calling for his resignation. All of that is enough, but it's not, because today we're learning about the fact that there was some kind of criminal probe into Sessions. We're seeing Trump step up attacks on Mueller by name. Trump quoting Alan Dershowitz today to basically say there should be no special counsel, and Trump shaking up his legal team to add this new lawyer with conspiracy theories about the DOJ and FBI, and Jeff Sessions' lawyer put out a new statement on all this tonight. To unpack it all, I've got two ace lawyers, Renato Mariotti, a former federal prosecutor, and former White House counsel to Barack Obama, Bob Bauer. Gentlemen, anyone would be forgiven for thinking that I took too long to go through all that, and that was the fastest we could do it. Renato, speak to the core new thing, which is us learning that someone at FBI was looking at Sessions as a potential criminal liar, and that person happens to be the guy fired on Friday, although the reporting suggests nothing yet nefarious about that.
Well, yeah, look, it's always an odd thing when the Attorney General of the United States is under criminal investigation, and it really shows the importance of making sure not only that there are recusals that are respected, but also that the people who are in charge of investigations, whether it's the Attorney General of the United States or the President of the United States, that they cannot interfere in the lawful investigations of themselves. Really, if they're able to do that, they're above the law. Now here, my understanding of the reporting is that Sessions was not aware of that criminal investigation, but it's certainly going to raise questions. Already, obviously, there were significant questions that Sessions had, had been violated his recusal in order to fire McCabe.
Do you think he did?
Well, it certainly appears that way. There should be questions about it. My understanding is that there's potentially...
He said he would recuse from matters involving the Clinton Foundation, and he fired McCabe about the Clinton Foundation.
Well, that's right. I mean, he certainly appears to have. And more importantly, it appears, I'd say, Ari, even beyond that the president, Donald Trump, pushed him to fire McCabe for reasons related to the Russia investigation.
Which itself is a separate improper issue, separate from the recusal. Now, Bob Bauer, I know that when you were counsel to Barack Obama, there was several times that the FBI was investigating the Attorney General, and he violated his recusal, and then you guys, of course, fired the FBI director and the deputy director. You remember that, right? I mean, this is...
I remember it clearly, and I have no regrets.
Standard stuff. I want you to give us your analysis from serving at the top of the legal game in the White House of this sparse report from Sessions' lawyer. It says the Attorney General is not under investigation for false statements or perjury in his confirmation hearing testimony and related written submissions to Congress. Bob.
He doesn't say when he was under investigation. It seems, and I haven't seen that statement, that he's saying he's not currently under investigation. But I want to return to something that you raised just a second ago, and that is there's already some question about how it was that he was involved in the firing of Andrew McCabe in the first place. He normalized the procedure by which the President of the United States tries to force the Department of Justice to do his bidding, maybe not so much directly anymore, but by tweet. And that's something that the Attorney General should not be doing. But second, he made a commitment to Congress not to take any action that could potentially affect the tenure of Mr. Mueller. And instead, what he did was he fired Mr. Mueller and immediately laid the foundation, helped to lay the foundation for the president to argue that the firing of Mueller reflects the corruption in the FBI and the reason why he, the president, believes that the Mueller investigation should be brought to a conclusion. So he had a direct hand in creating a line of argument that the president is using to threaten Mr. Mueller. I don't believe he should have done that.
Well put. Renato?
Yeah, well, I have to say all of this, Ari, raises very significant concerns about Donald Trump's involvement in the firing of McCabe. To me, the most interesting news has been over the last few days, it remains to me, the notes that were kept by Andrew McCabe. That really tells me that McCabe thought there was very questionable conversations between him and the president, and I think there's going to be a lot more to come in the days and weeks ahead as to the firing of McCabe. I think there's more there.
Yeah, and they didn't release, I made the point on air, they didn't release, the burden of proof would seem to shift quite a bit when you do that kind of Friday night firing before an Inspector General probe is even over.
Interesting. I wanted to play all of that.
Georgia's hardline conservative Secretary of State.
Alrighty. So, it's interesting. I'm not exactly sure why they are trying to demonize Sessions right now, but they are, and they're trying to take him out. Now, it's interesting because this part down here I'm unsure of, and that is why it takes all of us. I've never claimed to have all the answers, but he lets us know below that the Sessions Senate confirmation vote was pretty close, 52 to 47. And then he says number 175. I'm not exactly sure what that is, and I have not had an opportunity to look into this in depth. But if you happen to know, put it in the comments below. And in the meantime, I will look into this a little further. And Q says to us, logical thinking versus clickbait. Q. And that is good advice. Now, that brings us completely up to date with the Q posts. There have been no posts as of yesterday or today. And let me refresh this to make sure that Q has not posted while I've been recording this. And but I believe that we are up to date. And it is refreshing very slowly. Nope, and we are completely up to date now. So the next thing that I will do, hopefully tonight, but if not, tomorrow, I've got a lot of Q-related news to go over. So you'll want to tune into that because there is a lot going on, a lot. So if you have not had the opportunity to comb through the news and pull out that which is of importance, I would encourage you to watch the next Q-related news video. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you guys. If you want to be subscribed, make sure you stay subscribed. They are dropping subscribers, and make sure you hit the bell to be notified of any upcoming videos. And I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much. I appreciate my listeners. I tell you, I really do believe I have the best listeners on YouTube because you guys continually encourage me and keep me going. And I appreciate the prayers. I really do. Thank you so much. And you stay safe and stay well. And I'll talk to you soon.